Relevant Recruiter Group, what is up? Thank you for joining me for another live interview. If you can hear me, make sure you give me a hi. What's up? Let me know that our audio and video is working here. I've got a phenomenal guest I get to interview on the Relevant Recruiter Show today. Welcome, everybody. Help me welcome to the show, Dean Iacovetti with Vanta Partners. Dean, thank you for joining me today, man.
Yeah, great intro. Phenomenal guest. You got it queued up right away there.
Yeah, you got to get in this thing and get it dialed in. So, Dean, first off, I want to thank you for combing that hair today, getting dolled up, getting that beard going. You're looking good, man. I like that beard.
Yeah, you bet. I got my man bun going. I got my beard all ready. So, thank you for having me.
Right on, man. If you don't mind sharing with the audience, where we at in the world right now? Physical location.
Yeah, physical location is in the upstate New York area. Physically working out of Troy Innovation Garage, which is in Troy, New York, and living in the Clifton Park area of upstate New York.
Awesome, man. And I know we talked a little bit beforehand, but share a little bit about, if you don't mind, about your family and kids and things like that.
Yeah, got a phenomenal family. Crazy, but phenomenal. So my wife, Rebecca, been married for 15 or together for 15 years, married for 13. Oldest son, Luca, 12 years old, great kid. Middle daughter, Lily, phenomenal. And then a little maniac named London, my second boy, running around at 4 years old. So 12, 10, and 4. My wife, we're fortunate enough to do well and have her as a stay-at-home mom. And I'm here cranking at Vanta.
There you go, man. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah, like we talked about a little bit beforehand. I've got the 5 kids, and we've got some similar craziness going on. I'm curious, who's more challenging for you, the boys or the girls?
So right now it's the youngest boy, right? So London. Yeah. Lily, the middle daughter, she'll do anything for you. and the oldest son, he's getting to be a teenager. He's kind of off on his own, doing his own thing sometimes.
Yeah.
But the poor girl, he's giving us a run for the money right now.
Yeah, the teenage years are fun, man. I've got the 14-year-old. He's in the full prime of that. And but I think the boys for me are a little bit harder overall. But my youngest daughter, I think, is probably the one that's going to give us our biggest run for the money. She's the baby of the family, and she gets her way. We'll just say it that way. But
yeah, Lily bats those eyes, and I'm like, whatever you want, Lil.
Yeah. Well, right on, Dean. Let's get into some of the fun stuff, man. Tell us a little bit about how did you get into the recruiting industry? Give us a little bit of a 30,000-foot view, if you will, on your career.
Yeah. So I was talking to you earlier. Told you I grew up downstate in the Queens area, Long Island, right in the backyard of JFK Airport. My dad was a baggage handler for Northwest Airlines. My mom was a teacher's aide at our high school. So grew up pretty blue collar. Went to Towson University for my undergrad. My brother went to NYU, then went on to become an orthodontist, opened up his own practice. As I was graduating Towson, I didn't want to be the black sheep of the family or the nobody when your big bro is going to become an orthodontist. So I talked to my dad, who's a pretty big influence in my life. And he's like, hey, you love to talk, you love to argue with me. Why don't you go to law school? So what family doesn't want a doctor and a lawyer, right? So ended up going to University of Baltimore School of Law. From the first week, I absolutely hated it. Grew up in that old school mentality, though. If you start something, you got to finish it. Yep. So 3 years, graduated a year ahead of schedule with a master's degree and a law degree. And sort of after that, just stumbled into recruiting. I got my first gig at a recruiting agency, did really well there, and then ended up taking a role internally for a company called New Day Financial, which was during the refi boom of the early 2000s. It was high volume, high energy, high turnover. It was an awesome experience. Probably worked 60, 70, 80 hours a week there and wanted to work more because it was so much fun. Met my wife, Rebecca, while I was working there. She's from a town south of Syracuse called Cortland. So Cortland and where my family was on Long Island, there's a small town called Clifton Park in upstate New York, which was equidistant to both of our families. So we moved up here, didn't know a person, started working for an external recruiting agency, working for a lot of different companies, recruiting everything from chief nursing officers and chief financial officers of hospitals, all the way to developers and engineers for tech companies. Apprenda became a client of mine, and Apprenda was a very niche company in the tech industry. And they hired 2 or 3 people from me and said, listen, you got to come internal. We're going to explode in growth. You're charging us too much money in fee from an external recruiting standpoint. And we want you to work for us internally. So I ended up making the switch from being an external recruiter to now going internal with Apprenda. Took over the VP of HR and recruiting there, hired, 100 some odd people, got us from 26 folks to $150. Exited, or was getting ready to exit with Apprenda from an internal HR and recruiting standpoint, and didn't know where I was going to go after that. So I felt like a little bit like a fish out of water. I felt like, what's my next step, right? What am I going to do next? Do I continue with being an internal HR individual, or do I start my own thing? And I had a couple of really important folks in my life saying, listen, you got to go out and start your own thing. Just try it. You'll kick yourself in the butt if you don't do it. So I never really considered myself an entrepreneur. I often use the phrase, I'm a non-entrepreneur, because I didn't want to do it, right? But sort of back against the wall, hung my shingle called Vanta Partners about 3 years ago, and damn rocket ship, dude. I'm very lucky to have gotten such good training from Apprenda and the folks that work there to really specialize in the tech industry and placing mainly developers and engineers, sort of fingers to keyboard folks. I can do anything, as with many recruiters.
Right.
It's just a matter of understanding what role you're sourcing for. But the specialization for Vanta are really those fingers to keyboard folks that are coding and writing awesome programs, whether that be front end developers, back end developers, full stack, all encompassing in tech.
Yep. That's awesome, man. So, kind of as you went to that transition, did you know you were going to, kind of specialize in that area that you ended up specializing in? Were you kind of more general when you first started coming out? What was that like?
Yeah, when I first went into external recruiting in 2000 and let's say 2006, I didn't really have a specialization. I was sort of shotgun style. Hey, if there's an open role, let me try to fill it. Right. Again, from CFOs of for-profit hospitals to VPs of sales of different companies. But when I got into Apprenda, it was, again, a very focused tech company. Every single person had to understand how to write code or how to read it at the very least. So that experience really, helped me perfect my craft and get specialized in placing of developers and engineers. There's a lot of recruiters out there that can do it, but I think they're a little bit more keyword focused, right? If you don't see that keyword on somebody's resume, they might not be a fit for the role. What differentiates us in Vanta is we can actually go 2 or 3 layers deep with the questioning to find out, hey, does this person really know what's on their resume?
Right. That's awesome. Given your experience, because I know there's so many people that have a little resistance around kind of specializing, what have you noticed in terms of just work and enjoyment of work and processes and systems and things like that? Yeah. Going from more generalist early on to, now you're specialized. I mean, is it easier for you to a degree?
Yes and no, right? So it's easier for me because that's the world I live in, right? So I'm in that tech world day in and day out. It's easier for me on another note because, like you said, you do have that specialization and that's where you're living. It's easier for me because every company that wants to be successful is going to be tech related. I'll give you a good example that was explained to me a couple years back. You have a pool, right? And you need to check the pH and the acidity, whatever it is of the pool water to make sure that it stays clean and clear. Before you'd put the drops in, you'd look at the back of the packet, you'd match up the drops with, the colors, and it would say, okay, great, this matches. Now it's an app. You match up the colors to an app, and it's like, okay, you need more, whatever it is. You need more chlorine, you need more pH, you need more, whatever it's calling, alkalinity, whatever it's calling for. And now it's an app, and that is something as simple as the chemicals in your pool. So everything is going to be tech related if they want to continue to be successful.
Yeah, I love it, man. We just got a comment from Will Spangler. Will, thanks for joining
Spangler.
us. He said Dean's a beast.
Spangler, you're being too nice. You're a beast.
Yeah.
Great guy. He has some great specialization in accounting and finance, and Spangler's great individual.
Yep. Awesome. Will, thanks for joining us, man. So that's cool, man. So, I mean, you mentioned that you I like the brand, the non-entrepreneur, but
Yeah.
What were some of the things that you felt were like really, what was the resistance you were feeling about starting your own business?
I never wanted to do the back office stuff, right? I want to crank. I want to be
Right.
on the phone. I want to send the emails, send the text, talk to people, put them in a better situation. I don't want to mess with the business side of it, right? I don't want to worry about paying the benefits and all this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, in starting your own business, you have to deal with that. So I'm fortunate enough to have a really strong support system, not only with Vanta, the business, but also at home. With my wife taking care of a lot of that stuff as well. So it's that was the hesitation that I had. And I'm glad that a few, again, critical members of my life pushed me to start it, because it's been freaking like really awesome.
That's great to hear.
And I know it's corny, but I get super pumped about putting people in better situations.
Not corny at all, man. I mean, I think that's probably why you're as successful as you are, is because you're not driven by the dollar, you're not driven by the transaction, You're driven by the impact that you're making in people's lives. And I think
I really believe
Mhm.
This is not lip service. I believe that if you treat people right, you do the right thing, you get back to people, even if it's a turn down, you tell them no. It's like it's going to come back to you, right? I tell Ryan, my recruiter here, I tell my kids every day, if you get up and you put shitty out, shitty's going to come back to you.
Yep.
If you get up and you put good out, it'll eventually come back. It might not be that minute, that hour, that day, that week, that year, but it should come back to you, right?
Right.
So do the right thing. I mean, that's the mindset here.
I think it's huge for the mindset, because I think there are so many people that kind of come into the industry that focus on the transaction, focus on, may not have their eye on that impact and that you love to help people. You like to make a good placement. You like to impact the company. You like to impact the client. And I think if there were more recruiters that had that approach, there probably would be able to eliminate some of the bad reputation around recruiters and follow-up that you just mentioned in the industry.
Yeah, I don't mind that, that other recruiters have a bad reputation, because once I overcome that initial objection, what makes you different? What can you do for me different that some other recruiter wouldn't? It's like, okay, as long as I continue to do what I've done, I'm gonna, make the placements and be successful.
Right. Going back a step, so you said that your biggest thing was you didn't want to do any of the back office and administration, and obviously you've got support, but is that a barrier now that you're here? Are you is it like you're like, oh, I was way overthinking that? Or
yeah, there's so many tools and just different not hacks, but different things that you could use to really take care of a lot of that back office function stuff, that it's just like I can concentrate on the front of the house, right? I can concentrate on, making the calls, sending the emails, doing the follow-up, doing the biz dev, getting the leads, getting the job orders, and then ultimately closing them.
Yep. Obviously I would imagine you're probably getting a shit ton of repeat business coming your way, and referrals and things like that. Outside of that, what's like the main source? What's the main way that you're still generating, new relationships with clients and candidates?
Yeah, it's a lot of, word of mouth, right? It's a lot of, just asking people, hey, who do you know, right? So I grew up in the old school way of recruiting, where it's constant follow-up, it's constant grooming, it's constant cultivating of the relationships. And they might not pay dividends that day or that week, but eventually someone will say, oh crap, Dean, you go to Vanta, talk to Ryan. Those are the guys for this role. Maybe if they can't fill it, they'll know somebody. So the bulk of the business has gotten through, word of mouth and just individuals singing your praises that you've done right by.
Yeah, definitely playing the long game there with, so many people, again, come in, they think it's when we're focused on a transaction or what's going to happen today,
Yep.
then that usually bleeds into how you show up to the marketplace.
Yeah.
Kind of going to your other.
Those are the recruiters and the agencies that they're not gonna survive COVID.
Yeah.
They're focused on the transactions and just, winning today. There's no way that they could survive this crazy time that we're in.
No, I 100% agree. It's there's got to be a long-term buy-in for the client, for the candidate, in order for your business to be profitable and successful. And I think one of the biggest things is the market sees that if you show up that way. They see the desperation, they see the transaction, and then they have that other alternative where they see somebody else that's kind of sitting in a position of power like yourself, playing a long game, doing the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much a position of power, but it's definitely the passion hopefully shows through when I start recruiting.
Hell yeah. So what are you doing? Have you kind of adopted any kind of an online presence, if you will, with your marketing? Is that important to you?
It is. I just, again, it's one aspect of the business that you need to focus on if you want it to be successful, if you want it to work, right? So, I'm on my LinkedIn's, I'm on my Facebooks, I'm on my Instagrams, I'm on, all these different social media platforms trying to promote, the company, the brand, the, whatever else there is. It's kind of funny up here. If people know Vanta, I vandalize people's cars. So if someone comes to my driveway, I always put a sticker on the back left of the bottom of the back window, and people will be like, "Oh, dude, it's been like 3 weeks. I haven't even noticed it was there." So I market like crazy like that. I got a ton of awesome swag. To me, swag is super important.
Yeah.
I was with a previous company, and a buddy of mine who worked there. It was like my first couple of weeks. He's like, "You got to get the swag game in order." He's like, "Hey, we could get a great deal on painters caps. We could get about 1,000 of these painters caps for like $200 with our logo on it." I'm like, "Dude, that's great. I don't think anyone's going to wear a freaking painter's cap, So I make sure that our Vanta swag game's pretty tight.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Yeah. So has anybody supported the painter's cap? Did you at least get a sample product?
No, I nixed that pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
What about like you mentioned like on the content, you're showing up, you're being present online. I mean, do you feel like you're creating much thought leadership content? Are you just trying to stay, relevant with just posting jobs, or what is that like?
My mindset isn't to, actually, let me back up. You go on LinkedIn now, and not everybody, there's so many motivational people out there. I'm all for it. There's just people posting the greatest messages, get up at 4 a.m. and attack the day. And I'm like, geez, 4 a.m. I'll get up at 4 a.m. to go hunting, but it might be
that's about it.
Yeah. So, I'm all for those awesome messages, but for me, I don't think I consider myself a thought leader. I'll put out content, but it's really what I believe and what I feel. And if that turns out to be, beneficial to somebody, then great. If that turns out to be thought leadership to somebody, then great.
Right.
It's really coming from who I am and, what Vanta's about.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and I see a very consistent theme with just kind of the way you approach your business is you're going to kind of show up your best self every single day. You don't have a plan to transact today necessarily. Everything you're doing is more for long-term, being authentically 100% who you are. And I think that, for me, as I'm listening, it makes a hell of a lot of sense why you're, having the success that you're having.
Yeah. It's gotta be the long-term. It's gotta be,
Yeah.
You're going to have some wins, but recruiting is way more about the losses, unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
70% of recruiting is kind of bad news. Candidate got turned down, candidate backed out, right? If you think about it, it's sort of a two-sided quote unquote sale where you're dealing with probably one of the most unreliable products on the planet, and that's people, right? So you have to, understand the client and what their needs are. You have to understand the candidate and what their needs are, and put them together and make a match. And that's just the beginning of the work, right? Then they got to make sure that they're there for the long haul. We typically do a contingent fee with a 90-day guarantee at my company. But at the 90 days, I'm not just high-fiving the client saying, yes, the candidate made it, I'll see you later. It's like, I want that person to be there for years, and maybe they'll get into management and they'll say, hey, Vanta placed me here. Let me use them as we grow and stuff like that. So again,
Right.
it's really, the message I guess I'm preaching right now is the long run.
Yep. So how big is Vanta now? How big is your team?
We have 4 people right now in Vanta, and we're looking to grow. We're looking to hire some more internal recruiters. I got this guy over here, Ryan Burke. That's my number one right there.
There we go.
Great story on how Ryan got here, if you want to hear that. And he's cranking away, and we're actually looking to grow, maybe even toying with the idea of looking at different divisions of Vanta, right? Maybe a healthcare division. Will Spengler, maybe even accounting and finance division. I don't know if that's something that you want to hear, Will, if you're still online, but
we're coming for you, Will. Yeah.
Maybe some other divisions where Vanta, the core, will I think remain in the tech world, right? The developer, engineer, solutions architect, network, systems engineer type roles.
Got it. I think it's so cool to hear, man, like how you went from like, I don't want a business to like, now, yeah, we're going multiple divisions. We're going multiple categories. Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's inspiring. Do you have kind of like a goal now, like where, hey, I want to have 10 people? Is there anything specifically you're chasing, or just whatever?
It's just odd that I'm going to say this, but I talk a lot about the long-term vision, and I don't have that long-term vision for, I want 10 people.
Right.
I think I am at the point where if it happens organically, great. Right. I'm not sweating that one person to join, or saying, oh, I need to hire this person this week internally for Vanta. I think things happen for a reason. And if we grow like that, then we do. If not, I'm not, uber disappointed in myself, but if it happens, great.
Right.
I know Ryan wants to grow.
Yeah. Ryan's hungry.
Yeah. Gotta feed that guy.
Yeah.
Actually, good story of how Ryan got here. When I first started Vanta about 3 years ago, I ran into a problem pretty quickly. I mean, obviously it's a good problem, but it was still a problem nonetheless, where I had too many jobs to work on, and I didn't have enough time to hit them all. So I was like, who do I know around this area that I want to work with, that I trust, that I think is a great recruiter? So I came up with a list of maybe 3 or 4 people that I really wanted to target, that I thought could, be an awesome Vanta employee. Right. And after I went through those folks, Ryan came to my mind. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Ryan was one of those. He was one of those individuals that I initially targeted, and I met him at a networking event. He was just super impressive. Just well-spoken, hardworking, all the things that you'd want for an employee at your company. He had them all. And he was working for a monster recruiting agency. And I called him. I'm like, hey, Ryan, this is Dean. I don't know if you remember me, but started my own recruiting agency, basically gave him my whole spiel. And he's like, listen, man, you're great, but I'm working for a monster. I'm not going to go to your shitty little one-man shop, Right. And I was like, oh, fair enough, whatever. And I just stayed on him, as we do as recruiters. I just stayed on him for 6 months, 8 months. He's like, listen, I'm going to have a freaking coffee with you just to shut you up. And that was, I think, in February of 19. And that's right. He started working for us in March. Beautiful. Of last year, of 2019. So
there goes recruiting success story right there.
Recruiting the recruiter is exactly how we recruit.
That's good stuff, man. I love to hear it. That's so cool. What do you think from, like, you mentioned, the transactional thing with agencies earlier, but outside of that, I mean, what do you think the biggest challenge or problem that you see on the third party agency side, kind of as where we sit right now?
So I think an issue with larger agencies, or just agencies in general?
Just in general.
I think some recruiters are afraid to give feedback, right? Especially, I mean, obviously if it's negative,
right.
Good news travels fast, right? Bad news travels a little bit slow. And here we have the mentality, give the freaking feedback the way that you get it. If it's good, you tell them. If it's bad, you tell them. It's not, we're not attacking the candidate if it's bad feedback. We just say, hey, it's a turn down. It's a turn down for these reasons. And here's what we can do to get better in moving forward, right? Very rarely are we going to send a candidate to one place and then never talk to them again, right? So I want that candidate to get better on the next interviews or get better in the next part of the process.
Right.
It not only benefits us in Vanta, but it's going to benefit them as well. So I think one of the problems is that the feedback loop is slow. It's not always done, right? They don't always get back to people. Ryan and I have candidates literally thanking us, hey, appreciate the feedback. We just turned you down. They're like, yeah, I know, but at least you got back to me. The term is ghosting, right? You didn't ghost me. And I think that's, there's definitely a fine line that we have to walk between being annoying as recruiters and just pushing for feedback or giving the feedback. But that's the nature of the business.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I've heard that several times where, ghosting is obviously one of the biggest. It's funny, me running ads, for trying to attract recruiters. I always get people who think I am a recruiter in the ad, and then they start talking shit to me about ghosting and things like that in my ads. So it's something that always kind of comes up within the industry. I think you make a great point there.
And I want to, let everybody know I'm not perfect, right? There are going to be people that slip through the cracks. There are probably people that I just, for one reason or another, I just couldn't get back to. But it's not my intention. Stay on me, right? Mm-hmm. It's as much your job as it is mine to get back to me. I don't care if you're annoying me. If you're annoying me, you're at the top of my mind. So it's just, I want to make sure that I treat everybody with, with the utmost respect and try to do what's best, for those folks.
Right. As kind of 2020 comes to an end, outside of hopefully getting past this COVID shit here, what are you most fired up, about your personal journey and about your business and things like that?
I just think as soon as 2020 is over and 2021 begins, everything will change. We're just fired up. We actually have a really good crop of existing clients. There are clients that we're reaching out to that are, giving us every indication that, hey, 2021, there's going to be some awesome budget. So I'm just excited about continuing to do what I love. Again, it sounds so corny, but I freaking look forward to doing this. Mm-hmm. I look forward to seeing this guy, Ryan over here, cranking away, making calls, being excited about the business, right? Yep. I don't think there's any worse feeling than, number one, not having a job, but number two, not being excited or at least like the one you're going to, right? It's like, okay, this is a freaking grind. This is life. Life kind of doesn't have to be that way. I mean, I get it. You got to make money. You got to do what's good for you and your family. But that's really, what I'm trying to navigate is getting people into better situations.
Yeah. And I mean, your passion clearly, comes through as you talk about that type of stuff. And I think that is thought leadership, when you can come into somebody and say, hey man, there's better out there for you. You don't need to settle for this job, because as humans, we're so kind of ingrained and entrenched, and some people are very, focused on that stability, don't want to rock that boat, and they'll sacrifice their happiness to make sure that they still have a job tomorrow.
Especially in COVID, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I know, obviously what we're talking about here is easier said than done, but I think that should be everybody's pursuit that's unhappy with the job, is to find, realize that there's something better out there for you, and working with people like yourself, can make that opportunity happen.
Yeah. It's, again, long-term, right? You gotta you focus on the things that you can control and try to minimize the things that you can't.
Yep. That's huge, man. That's huge. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything. We've blown through this half hour like nothing. I can't even believe we've already been here. What is something, like, if you were going to give an agency recruiter, somebody that's thinking about starting their business, or somebody that's, in the business right now that might be struggling, what's the number one piece of advice you'd be willing to share right now?
Keep at it. Good friend of mine said, you can't judge your business day to day or week to week. You got to try to judge it year over year. This year, January, not that we have such a long-standing, history to look back to of Vanta, but January was the best freaking month we've ever had. February, great. March, a little lighter. COVID hit, and then numbers start to dip a little bit. And then it's just like, okay, my mentality is make more calls, reach out to more people, create more waves, right? So I always say the number of calls you receive is a direct correlation to the number of calls you've made, right? So if you want to get more washback or you want to get more, business, make the call, send the emails, teeter that line between annoying and aggressive, so it's just, that's our mentality here, is keep going, right? So the advice I give is, it's hard. I get it. Just try not to stop,
Yep.
You could just click on LinkedIn and there's 400 positive messages of people just saying, get up early and grind, not that that's the only thing that you need to do, but work hard, right?
Yep.
If you don't love it, then try to change it.
Yeah. That's great advice, man. I mean, I think if you're in a time like now, there's some people that are stuck and frozen. And that's not a knock. I know everybody's going through all this, in their own way, but yeah, I think the biggest thing I've been preaching myself is just control it. You get what you can control.
Yep.
You can control your effort. You can control how you show up, whether that's, going to be calls, emails, posting on social media, whatever it is, just sticking to the full throttle plan, because that's what you have control of.
Yeah. I drop my daughter off at school. And in the morning, she's like, okay, Dad, let's go through the checklist. Do I have everything? Do you have your mask? Do you have your water? Do you have your homework? Do you have your book bag? Do you have your lunch? Do you have your blah, blah? Do you have your positive attitude?
Yep.
And that's something, if you wake up thinking you're going to have a shitty day, chances are you'll have a shitty day.
Yeah. You will manifest that.
Yeah. If you wake up thinking, hey, I'm going to try to have a good day, then, you might not always, but overwhelming majority of the days you should do pretty good.
100%, man. I agree with that. Dude, thank you so much for sharing and showing up today 100% like you always do, bringing your positive vibes, bringing that big beard, that big smile.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
What's that?
I really appreciate the opportunity to be on here.
Yeah, man. And thank you for joining me and dropping the value that you did. And we appreciate it very much. Everybody that's watching live, thank you so much for joining us today. Keep an eye out for Dean's replay coming out on YouTube in the next couple of days and on the Relevant Recruiter podcast. I think I'll be going live again in here tomorrow by myself, talking a little bit about gratitude. Obviously it's a gratitude type of week, the obvious there. So anyways, everyone enjoy the rest of your Tuesday here. Dean, thank you for joining me, and we'll see everyone soon.
Thanks, bud.